Welcome folks. Today I'm going to show you how to reliably save data in a very easy way so that you do not set up yourself for spaghetti code. Now I'm using my project I'm working on right now as an example, and there are some things that I'm going to show you. So the first thing I want to show you is to separate the data like weapons, statistics and stuff from your monobehavior object. Basically, a monobehavior object, like my actor, is an object that relies on, it basically inherits all the Unity stuff. So update, start, fixed update, physics, everything runs on monobehavior. Okay? When you want to save things, you don't want monobehavior, you don't need monobehavior. So the best way is to declare a public class. Now, private, public, whatever you want, as long as it's serializable. Reason is, you cannot save or serialize complex objects in Unity, at least in Unity, as far as I know. You cannot serialize, say, a box collider. Now you can serialize the radius of the box collider because it's a primitive value. So what's a primitive value? A primitive value is a number, a string, a boolean. So anything that's not more complex than a float, integer, boolean, or I mean number or words. Basically, that's the serializable field. So you cannot store, let's say, the geometry of the box collider. You cannot store the animation. You can't do that. Okay. So how can you load your data and save it so that you do not become a crazy scientist? It's very simple. We have our class, we have our inventory. Our inventory contains a list of objects called weapon, medkit, ammo and keys. When we instantiate this inventory, we have a public constructor where if we do not specify any parameter, it's gonna create a simple, it's gonna allocate. This is the word new means allocate, create a new area of memory. What type of area are we going to allocate? This one, a list of weapons. And it's gonna, and the variable weapons is gonna be referencing this new area of memory. So, this list of classes can be broken down into the base weapon, which inherits from item. So we inherit the name and the sprite code. Okay. We have damage, cooldown, a boolean is melee, and a boolean is two-handed. As you can see, the data itself of the weapon is stored in this class. So when we want to save this class, and this is also the constructor, if we pass these parameters, it's gonna assign them, this will come in handy later, but when we reconstruct the weapon from the data. So when we save, we want to save this data. Okay, we're interested in this, so the next time we're gonna recreate this weapon with the data we have. The same goes with the medikit, same goes with the ammo, same goes with the keys. Okay, now we got the classes or objects for the game, which will be part of actor. As you can see, actor has a lot of stuff as an inventory. The inventory contains those classes. Okay, that's very simple. So we go to our Unity, we add our list of stuff. Maybe we pick up some items during the level and we want to save. So we save. I have a data manager which handles the saving, not the loading, because the loading, okay, I'm gonna segue a little bit. You save by basically having one object, data manager, which is also a physical entity on my Unity editor. So I drop the game object data manager, I attach the data manager script, and when I want to save, I will pull all the data into this class. So there is a bit of code here, and as you can see, I save everything. Now when I save the actor data, which is the HPs, the position, you can store the position. It's vector 3, so it's float, float, float. Save the inventory, and I save the current HP. Okay. This is don't pay attention to this. This is basically me. Basically, when I save, what I do is search through the file, and if I find the object that I'm looking for, if it's the same object, remove him from the save file and add the current game object, the current data into the file. Okay, so we avoid duplicates. So we have our actor data. This is the class, and this is the constructor that I used up there. So when we load the data, okay, we saved our data. We save the inventory, which contains all the stuff I showed you in the other class. It's gonna get saved. So we have all the data now. We need to load the data. So let's go to my actor class. My actor class has a method that is called getSaveData. Okay. There is a check. So basically, if you're reloading the game, or starting out, there's a bunch of conditions. If they are met, you need to load the data. You go, you fetch the first, you check if the file exists. If there is no save file, either be temporary or permanent, that's why hence the file name, return. You don't have to get any data. So we catch one exception with this. Okay, if you do not include these and you accidentally, I don't know, delete the file, it's gonna cause an exception. So just be sure to bulletproof your code. Second, what we do is each single entity, whether it's the actor of maybe a door, we get the data. So I create a wrapper. Oh, by the way, if you don't know, you cannot store directly a list. You cannot serialize a list. So you have to wrap that list inside a class that is not a list. So basically what you do is you make a class which is not a list. Inside the class you declare your list, and you serialize not the list but the class in which the list is contained. I know it's complex, that's why it's called wrapper. So that's the only way you can serialize a list. Okay. Now what I do is each object access the file, and you can do that because it's a read operation, it's not a write operation. If my actor will write on the save file, it will generate an exception because multiple entities will be trying to access the file. Now we go through the file, and if the name is the name of the object I'm trying to look for, and the scene name is equal to the scene currently active, get active scene, okay, it means we found the object we're looking for. Because when we look for an object in a save file, we need to catch that particular object. And let's say you have a couple of entities, or a couple of game objects that have the same name. How can you discern which is for, say, level 1 and which is from level 2. Hence the check on the scene name and the actor name, but you can make it more complex. So what's important is that we declare a new inventory here. Even though the actor has already been created and an inventory has been instantiated, I want a new inventory. I want to create a new area. So player inventory is going to be referencing a new area of memory, and we're going to fill this area of memory with all the data we've gathered in the save file. So for each ammunition, okay, in the temporary actor data, which is what we got from our file, what I want to do is a player inventory dot ammo, which is the list of ammunition. I want to add what? I want to add a new ammo type, and I'm gonna pass these values. Now these values are taken from the file, so we're basically, and the same we do for weapons, keys, and medkit. What we've done now is we have created from our save file our ammunition, and we are populating our inventory like that. Okay, so once we've done that, you can basically do that for HPs and all the values of your entity. But this is a very solid way to save the data of your game. So to recap, what are the steps to make this process work? Okay, first of all, no stuff, no parameters in mono behavior. Okay, make a class, define a class, and in this class you're gonna insert all the parameters relative to the class. So for a weapon, it's like I told you, it's like the name, the sprite code, the damage, and so on. Once you've made the class, you need to make, maybe you need a list because you have multiple weapons. So you create a list of weapons. And by the way, in the weapon class, remember, you need a constructor to pass the parameters when you create a new instance of that class. So we make a list of weapons if we need a list, otherwise we don't, and we put the list in a wrapper. Now, in my case, my wrapper is the inventory. Okay, as you can see, my inventory contains a list of weapons. This way, I can actually serialize my inventory. So you can serialize, and then you go and use one entity to collect all the data. So when your save data gets called, there's a few checks here, and what you do is for each type of object that you want to store the data, you find those objects and you save their data. Now it's very important that you do not disable the objects. You do not disable the objects, because if you disable the objects, you're not going to find them, whatever. So you find the objects you're looking for, and you put all the data inside a class that can store the data. In my case, it's actor data. You put it wherever you want. Now you saved. Remember, reloading, you don't do that from one entity. You reload from inside the game object that needs the data. Okay? The reason for that, in case you're wondering, is Unity, you don't know the how shall I put it, loading order of Unity. So you don't know what gets instantiated first. So if you run Unity in editor mode and you launch the game and you are like using data manager to distribute the data to all the players, it may work, but when you build the game and you try it on your computer, maybe your friends, whatever, it doesn't work. It gets an exception. because the loading order is different from your editor version. So what this means is that basically the object you're trying to put the data inside has not been created yet. Maybe the player is not instantiated yet in Unity, but data manager is, so data manager starts loading and updates before the player gets loaded, and it generates an exception because it doesn't find the player. So you reload your data from the object, so every object will access the file and take the data it needs, and that's how you rebuild your object from scratch. Okay, that is everything I have to say. With this information, now go and make your game. And if you need help, if there's something you do not understand, let me know in the comment and I'll help you out for sure. Thank you for watching and see you next time.